On Tuesday, 7th February, Swedish journalists at Radio Sweden revealed that two bogus Iranian asylum seekers who were deported to Iran in 2022 had planned to kill three prominent Swedish Jews. The information about the two Iranian bogus asylum seekers, a man and a woman, was not new. My good friend Azarmehr, an investigative journalist based in Finland, had previously disclosed the true identity of the couple and their connections with the Iranian regime. But until now, it was not known what they'd been plotting to do. It is the first time that it has been revealed they had in fact intended to murder prominent figures of the Jewish community in Sweden. Still, even after the publication of the investigation by Radio Sweden, some serious questions remain unanswered. Questions like why the Swedish Migration Agency ignored several serious red flags before granting the couple asylum in 2017. And more importantly, why did the Swedish public prosecutor fail to gather and present the evidence for the two to be convicted? I wrote about the investigation by Radio Sweden in Persian, and the article was published in Cayhan London, a popular Persian website's publication outside Iran. Since then, I have received information from a reliable source which will shed light on the unanswered questions, and I will share them with you in this video. Just bear with me for now though. First, let's just quickly go through the details of the case. In 2015, an Iranian couple entered Sweden through a normal refugee land route and claimed asylum. Not as Iranian refugees, but pretending to be Afghan refugees. So the Swedish Migration Agency arranged for an Afghan translator to hear their case. But strangely, the couple said they prefer the Persian translator. This was the first red flag that was raised. If they were Afghan refugees, why were they not able to speak to an Afghan interpreter and preferred to speak to a Persian one? Well, they managed to justify this by saying they'd lived in Iran for a long while and were now more fluent in the Persian language spoken in Iran rather than the Afghan dialect spoken in Afghanistan. But the Afghan interpreter alerted the Swedish Migration Agency with more red flags. They were told that the two did not have an Afghan accent. They didn't come across as Afghans, and the woman couldn't even properly pronounce or write down the name of the Afghan town that she claimed to be from. The ID papers were also clearly forgeries. In the summer of 2016, just over a year before the couple were granted residence permits, the Swedish Migration Agency also received two anonymous tips about the male applicant, Mahdi Ramezani, who at the time went under the false name of Fard Malik Shahi. The tips said that the applicant was lying about his identity as an Afghan refugee. In the papers that Radio Sweden managed to get hold of, the case officer's notes at the Swedish Migration Agency reads, "The source also says that the applicant is a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards." A serious warning, but despite all these serious red flags, the Swedish Migration Agency didn't investigate the tips any further and foolishly granted the couple asylum in 2017. Asylum in Sweden for a couple that turned out to be sleeper cells for the Ayatollah regime in Iran with intent to kill Swedish citizens in Sweden. Some of their Swedish neighbours, I'm told, noticed strange behaviours about them. For example, they had permanently draped their windows with their blankets instead of curtains or blinds, and they never took them down. But the neighbours assumed they were just too mindful about their privacy and didn't take it further. Within the Iranian community, however, the couple went out their way to show themselves as hardened opposition to the regime. The woman didn't cover her hair and dressed like a typical woman in the West. And the man openly spoke against the regime and called for organising action against the Ayatollahs in Iran. According to Swedish criminal investigation, this sleeper cell was activated in early 2021 after a trip to Iran, which makes you wonder, didn't the Swedish Migration Agency think why Afghan refugee asylum seekers who claiming persecution in Iran would travel back to Iran? Anyway, let's move on. The couple met with operatives of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, and they were given an unspecified sum of money. And when the couple returned to Sweden, they spent some of that money. They bought a car and surveillance equipment and cameras, and according to the investigation, they gathered addresses and photographs of their intended targets, i.e. the three prominent Swedish Jews. The couple themselves were being monitored by the Swedish security, however, and were arrested and kept in custody for 8 months. Further investigation and questioning left no doubt that the couple were acting on behalf of Iran to kill Swedish citizens. Yet strangely and unbelievably, the prosecutor failed to gather the evidence and finalise the investigation for a conviction. Not something you would expect from the Swedish public prosecutor. So let's get back to the questions that I raised earlier. Let's start with the easier one. Why did the Swedish Migration Agency ignore so many red flags and grant them asylum? Well, the answer to this is as expected. Sheer incompetence by the employees of the agency, who were mainly green, lefty, refugee-loving types that thought they were doing good somehow. But what about the public prosecutor's failure? Well, according to my source, the Swedish Security Service, SÄPO, is only accountable to the Swedish Prime Minister, who at the time was Eva Magdalena Andersson from the Swedish Social Democratic Party. Faced with all the pressure from Iran at the time to release Hamid Nouri, the Iranian official detained and tried in Sweden for his role in the massacre of the Iranian political prisoners in 1988, and the Swedish hostages that were kept in Iran, Andersson decided deportation of the couple to Iran was the easier option, and instructed the Swedish Secret Services to send only the token evidence to the public prosecution, thus preventing a conviction for the couple. But I think the most valuable lesson from this case is learning about the extent to which the Iranian regime goes to place its sleeper cells within Europe, exploiting the uncontrolled and unvetted migration policies of Europe. Undoubtedly, the couple that we talked about in this video are not the only sleeper cells in Sweden, and undoubtedly there are others in other European countries. Unvetted, uncontrolled and unlimited migration is a security risk. It's bad for everyone, especially bad for the genuine asylum seekers too. But it's good for the hostile states like Iran, who are planting their sleeper cells throughout Europe. If you found this video useful, please press like and leave your feedback in the comments. I appreciate your time for watching this. Thank you.